At the mall on Black Friday, my 11-year-old daughter grabbed my hand so hard, her knuckles turned white, and whispered, "Mom, quick, behind that pillar. Do not move." I leaned just far enough to see what she was pointing at, and my whole mind stalled. Tristan was there, my husband, and beside him was Judith, his fragile mother. The woman who had spent the last few weeks drifting through our house in oversized sweaters, forgetting names, leaning on a walker, and acting too confused to find the bathroom alone. Only this woman was not drifting. She was moving through the Mall of America like she belonged to the bright lights and polished floors. She was wearing heels. She was standing straight. She had a glossy blowout, a fitted coat, and she was laughing. Actually laughing, while Tristan held her elbow like they were out together for pleasure, not medical errands. Cora pressed closer to me, her breathing fast and shallow against my sleeve. She whispered, "That is her." I did not answer, because my throat had gone tight and stubborn. Tristan had texted me that morning saying he was taking his mother to the clinic. Judith had spent the night before on our couch, asking Cora the same question 3 times. And now she was striding past Sephora like nothing had ever been wrong with her. I squeezed Cora's hand once, then twice, our silent code for stay with me. We stayed tucked behind the fake marble pillar while the lie passed by in heels. I kept Cora close as Tristan and Judith moved with the crowd toward the jewelry wing. Cora tried to peek again, and I touched her shoulder gently. "Eyes down," I whispered. She nodded, but her face had gone hot with the kind of anger children get when adults treat them like they are too small to notice the truth. Tristan stopped at a kiosk lined with velvet trays and leaned in, smiling. Judith lifted her wrist under the lights, like she had done it 1,000 times. A sales associate brought out a loop. Tristan's shoulders loosened in a way I had not seen in months. The woman beside him turned her hand, and I caught the flash of a fresh manicure. Judith in my house claimed the smell of nail polish made her dizzy. Cora looked up at me and asked why he was there with her. I did not answer. I just watched him tuck something small into his pocket, then guide her toward Nordstrom, with his hand at her lower back. That touch did not belong in any mother and son story. I turned Cora gently so her face disappeared into my coat, then led her away through the crowd without running. Running makes you visible. I walked her through the food court like we had every reason in the world to be there, bought a bottle of water neither of us wanted, and found a corner table behind a barrier. Cora kept watching the entrances, like she thought Tristan might suddenly appear in front of us. I told her to talk to me. Her voice came out low and clipped, like she had rehearsed the words in private. She said Judith told her not to tell me something. My stomach tightened. I asked what. Cora said that the week before, while I was at work, Judith told her someone was coming over, and that if I asked later, she was supposed to say nobody came. I asked what woman. Cora shook her head and said she never saw her. Tristan had taken her to her room and called it adult stuff. Then, with that small, miserable honesty only children have, she added that Judith told her to say grandma louder, like she was doing it wrong. Cora looked down at my wrist and grabbed it gently, then said one more thing in a voice she clearly hated using. Judith grabbed me too. Not hard enough to bruise, but hard enough to make a point. I covered Cora's hand with mine and told her she had done nothing wrong. Her shoulders loosened just a little. Then she looked up and said, "Judith can walk." I saw her in the garage. She walked like a normal person. My daughter had been carrying all of that by herself. We made it to the parking ramp in a quiet that felt heavier than noise. My phone buzzed while I drove down level after level of concrete. It was Tristan. "The clinic is running late. Mom is confused. Do not worry." I did not answer. When we reached the car, I turned off the engine and looked at Cora. I told her we were going to do what we always do. We were going home. She was going to eat. She was going to do homework. And she was going to let me be the adult. She nodded, but she did not look relieved. She looked like she was bracing for the next blow. That was when I understood the lie was bigger than whatever I had just seen at the mall. It had already reached inside my child. Tristan did not come home until after dark. He was carrying a pharmacy bag like a prop, and he kissed my cheek with the tired affection of a man who thought routine could still save him. From the couch, Judith's voice floated into the kitchen, sweet and fragile. "Naomi, honey, did I already meet you today?" Tristan shot me a quick look that said play along. I did. Later, after Cora went to bed, I found a neat stack of papers on the kitchen counter with a sticky note in Tristan's handwriting. "Sign so I can help with Mom's care." It was not for his mother's care. It was a power of attorney packet with blank signature lines and language wide enough to swallow my finances whole. I slid the papers into my work bag without saying a word. That was the moment I went quiet for real. A week earlier, my life had still been measured in bills, receipts, and the kind of tired spreadsheets you build when you are trying to hold a household together, with one income and good intentions. Tristan had been hovering behind me at the kitchen table for months, rubbing the back of his neck and saying the job market was brutal. He always said brutal like it was weather. I would ask where he applied that day, and he would answer with fog. "A few places. Some leads. I'll call next week." Meanwhile, the mortgage got paid because I paid it. Cora's orthodontist appointment happened because I scheduled it. Judith's care became my third job because Tristan kept saying she could not be alone. He said she was declining. He said just until he got back on his feet. One night I pointed at the spreadsheet and told him we were down to one real paycheck. His face shifted for half a second, and then he said we had assets. He glanced toward the hall closet, where the safe sat behind old storage bins. He did not say the word bracelet, but it hung there anyway. That was when I realized he had started counting things that were not his. And Judith had arrived at exactly the right time to help him do it. Judith came to our house with a walker, a suitcase, and a helpless smile that made people soften on instinct. I had only met Tristan's mother a handful of times before then. She lived out of state, and I had no reason not to believe the woman who showed up at our door, looking frail and confused. On the first day, she forgot Cora's name twice. On the second, she asked Cora to fetch her water, and then complained that it was too cold. Tristan patted her shoulder and said she did not mean it, that her brain was slipping. But slipping brains do not test power that cleanly. Judith asked where we kept spare keys. She asked whether Cora had chores like a real family. She corrected the way my daughter set the table, and told her that in this family, we show respect. One afternoon, Cora came into the kitchen whispering that Judith had gone into her room. I checked, and found dresser drawers not quite shut. Judith was back on the couch by then, hands folded, eyes fixed on the television. When I asked whether she had gone into Cora's room, she blinked and turned it into confusion. Tristan stepped in front of her like a shield and told me not to interrogate his mother. Then came the bracelet. It arrived in a slim black box with a lawyer's letter. It was not jewelry to me. It was a promise. Cora's biological father's family had money, but most of it lived behind words like trust and fiduciary and approved distributions. The bracelet was one of the few tangible things that belonged entirely to her. Antique. Heavy. Bright enough to catch light like ice. The appraisal came with it. $150,000 to $250,000, depending on market and condition. I did not show Cora the number. I only showed her the box and told her it was hers when she was older, and that it was safe. I put the appraisal papers in a folder, stored the bracelet in our small home safe, and memorized the combination. Tristan watched the whole process from the doorway without saying much. Later, when I told him the estimate, his eyebrows lifted before he could stop them. Then he asked whether the trust would cover Cora's college. He asked it too fast. That number rewired him. And a few days later, the papers on my counter started appearing, each one pretending to be about care, while all of them were really about access. The day I ran into Cole Bennett, I had slept maybe 3 hours. Judith had woken Cora at 2 in the morning because she could not find the bathroom, and Tristan slept through it, like the world owed him rest. I dropped Cora at school, then drove to a coffee shop near my office, because I needed caffeine and 5 minutes where nobody needed anything from me. That was when someone said my name in a way that made me turn. It was Cole. Unalwind. We went to high school together, back when my biggest problem had been chemistry quizzes and whether my bangs looked stupid. He smiled, then flashed a badge only after he noticed me staring at his belt. "Detective now," he said. I gave him a tired congratulations that did not reach my face. He studied me for half a second and asked if I was okay. Not casual, not polite, real. I hesitated, then told him the smallest true thing. Something feels off at home. Cole did not pry. He slid a card across the table and said, if I ever needed to reality check something, I should call him. My phone buzzed then, with a door sensor alert. Front door opened. My schedule had shifted that day, and I had not told anyone. My whole body went cold in that practical way fear sometimes arrives. I drove home fast, but not reckless. Cora needed a mother, not a car wreck. When I pulled into the driveway, the first clue was not broken glass. It was silence. The porch light was off, even though I had left it on. The front door was not wide open. It was shut softly, but not latched. Inside, the house looked almost right, which was worse somehow. A throw blanket was on the floor. A side table drawer sat cracked open. Cora's bedroom door was ajar, and the closet light was on. In the kitchen, my work bag was tipped over with papers pushing out of it like a tongue. I crouched, slid the documents back inside, and stood up. Then I went straight to the hall closet, where the safe lived behind dull plastic bins. The bins had been shifted. Not much. Just enough. I opened a safe and saw the black bracelet box still there. For half a second, my lungs worked again. Then I saw the empty space beneath it. The appraisal file was gone. I checked the box anyway. The bracelet was not there. Just folded tissue paper, shaped like a joke. I did not cry. I did not panic. I called Tristan. He answered on the second ring, sounding cheerful, as if his day had gone exactly the way he intended. He said, "Hey babe," before I even spoke. I asked where he was. There was a beat, then a little laugh. At the clinic. Where else? I looked at the scratch near the door frame, the kind a key can leave when someone works a latch carefully. I told him someone had been in the house. He sighed like I was becoming inconvenient and told me not to start. He said I was always imagining things. I hung up on him before he could keep performing innocence. Then I called Cole. I did not need comfort. I needed a witness. He showed up the way real help does, quick and quiet and without theatric. He walked in, took in the moved bins, the half-disturbed living room, the safe location, and started asking simple questions in a steady voice. When did I last see the bracelet? Who knew where it was kept? Were there cameras? I answered without decorating anything. Cole crouched by the door and ran a finger along the latch, then told me this was not a random break-in. They had not touched the television. They had not taken my laptop. They had not cleared drawers, looking for cash. In the kitchen, he opened a drawer I had missed. My checkbook and mail were untouched. They came for one thing, he said. Then he looked at me when I added, and the paperwork. He told me that was the part that made it stranger. A thief who knows what an appraisal looks like is not acting blind. He is either experienced or informed. He asked who had access to the house. I hesitated for exactly 1 second, then told him the truth. Tristan, Judith, and a caregiver we had briefly. He nodded once, not surprised. He said I needed to treat it like an inside job until proven otherwise. Tristan came home that evening carrying takeout like a peace offering. Judith shuffled in behind him with her walker and watery eyes. Tristan saw Cole's card on my counter and snapped that I had called a cop. I corrected him and said detective. I told him the safe had been opened. Judith gasped too perfectly. Tristan leaned close and said insurance was what people did in situations like this. Not detectives. not strangers. Not dragging family business into daylight. That was the moment I knew they were not afraid of the theft. They were afraid of visibility. 2 days later, I ran into the caregiver at Target. Her name was Carla, warm and competent. The kind of person who had treated Cora like a human being instead of a task. She used to come by for a few hours because Tristan insisted Judith needed constant supervision. Then one afternoon she texted me an apology and said she could not come back. Tristan claimed Judith accused her of stealing medication. I had hated that story, but I had been too exhausted to challenge it. In the produce aisle, Carla looked around before speaking. Then she told me Judith had never accused her of stealing anything. Tristan did. He said his mother felt unsafe with her. I asked why. Carla leaned closer and said she had written down what she saw. Judith was not confused most days. She acted lost when Tristan was in the room, but when he left, she pulled out a smartphone and scrolled like any other woman. Carla said Judith wore expensive perfume and always had her nails done. I asked if she was sure. Carla said she was sure enough to get fired for noticing. After that, I started watching Judith the way you watch a glass, balanced too close to the edge of a counter. On Tuesday morning, she could not work the television remote, but she remembered the passcode to Tristan's phone the second he handed it to her. On Wednesday, she said her joints hurt too much to stand. 5 minutes later, when she thought I was in the laundry room, I watched her walk to the window without the walker, standing straight as a fence post while she looked outside like a lookout. Then later that same day, she leaned toward Tristan in the kitchen and said, "Baby, did you talk to her yet?" The word hit me like dropped metal. Tristan looked up, saw me, and corrected her too quickly. "Mom," he said louder than necessary. "Remember we talked about calling me Tristan?" Judith blinked and flipped right back into the helpless act. Did I say the wrong thing? I nodded like none of it mattered. Inside, everything had gone very still. The next lie was going to require effort from me, and I was done giving them any. That was why I went back to the mall with Cora on Black Friday. I told her we were returning a coat. Really, I was going for confirmation. And I found it almost immediately. Same man. Same woman. Same lie. Only this time, when she turned, I saw the darker hair, the smoother face, and the small tattoo near her wrist. Then a sales clerk smiled and called her by name. Sabrina. Not Judith. Sabrina. And when Tristan saw me watching, all the color left his face. I did not wave at them. I did not walk over. I did not give Tristan the public scene he would later try to turn into confusion. I just turned Cora gently away and said we were leaving. That was the moment I got calm for good. The next morning, I called in late to work, dropped Cora at school, and drove straight to an inheritance attorney's office with my hands steady on the wheel. I did not tell Tristan where I was going. I did not warn him. I brought every document I had. Trust correspondence. The appraisal email chain. The police report number Cole gave me. The unsigned power of attorney packet Tristan had tried to slide under my nose. The attorney was a woman with sharp glasses and a voice that did not waste time. She listened while I laid everything out in order. Then she confirmed what I already suspected. Tristan had no authority over Cora's trust assets. None. But he could still create chaos if I gave him access through me. I told her I would not. She slid protective filings across the desk, along with safeguards that would make any request tied to Tristan trigger extra review. I signed with a calm that felt unfamiliar, almost detached. Then I called the trust contact from the parking lot and told them to flag anything connected to Tristan immediately. On the way home, I froze my credit from my phone like it was just another boring errand. By the time I walked through my own front door, I had already started building a wall he could not charm his way around. Tristan was waiting in the kitchen with more papers in his hand, smiling too brightly. He said he brought documents to make things easier. I smiled back, small and flat, and told him I had already signed papers. With my attorney, Tristan, and Sabrina, still playing Judith in her soft sweater and careful shuffle, changed at exactly the same time. Pale. Dot. Flat. Alert. They understood before I said anything else. My quiet move had landed like a locked door. Cole met me later that afternoon, in a busy cafe. Neutral enough that nobody could twist it into harassment or drama. I slid the timeline across the table. The caregiver's statement. The mall confirmation. The attorney's notes. The theft details. Cole did not act shocked. He acted focused. He said if they stole the bracelet, they would try to move it, but pieces that valuable are difficult to sell cleanly. I told him then, we needed to make it dirty. He nodded once. Together we drafted a simple notice for local dealers and pawn shops. Nothing theatrical. Just the stolen item report number and a clean description. Then he walked me through what I could legally record in my own home without complicating anything. We chose 2 small cameras, one facing the hallway, one angled toward the closet where the safe lived. Nothing in bedrooms. Nothing invasive. Just clean evidence. Then, I did the part that felt like swallowing glass. I baited them. I called Tristan on speaker and said I was meeting about Cora's assets and needed to find another appraisal file. I let the pause sit there. Tristan asked another, too quickly. I told him it was just paperwork and not to worry. Which, of course, meant he worried immediately. That evening I made dinner like any other night. Cora did math at the table. I kept the whole house boring on purpose. Tristan drifted through the kitchen pretending to help, asking casual questions that were not casual at all. He wanted to know what the lawyer said. I told him the trust was protected. He smiled, but it looked painful on him. Sabrina moved through the room in her blanket and frail voice, peering down at Cora's homework and sighing about how hard numbers were. Cora did not answer. After she went upstairs, Tristan tried again. He told me to let him see the documents. He leaned closer and asked what kind of marriage we even had if I did not trust him. I looked right at him and said the one thing I had finally learned to say without apologizing. I am keeping Cora safe. Something crossed his face then. Quick and ugly. From the couch, Sabrina called out for food in that syrupy voice of hers, and Tristan snapped back into performance mode so fast, it was almost dizzying. They were going to move soon. I could feel it. The next day, I created the opening without announcing it. I told Tristan I needed to pick Cora up early for a school appointment, and that I would be gone for about an hour. That part was the lie. Cora stayed safely at school because I had already updated her pickup list and password with the office. Quiet, practical steps. I drove around the block and parked where I could see the front walk without being obvious. Then, I waited. 20 minutes passed. Then, 30. Finally, the front door opened slowly, and Tristan stepped out to scan the street. A car pulled up. Sabrina got out wearing Judith's cardigan, like a disguise she had grown tired of. She walked fast. No limp. No hesitation. He waved her in. On the camera feed, I watched them head straight to the hall closet like they had rehearsed it. Tristan yanked the storage bins aside with practiced hands. Sabrina hissed at him to hurry. He said he knew exactly where I kept it. Then she said, clear as day, that the buyer would not wait forever. Tristan laughed under his breath and said once they had it, I could not do anything. They opened the safe with a speed that made my skin crawl. Then Sabrina asked where the folder was. Tristan's voice changed. Tight. Irritated. I must have moved it. They tore through drawers anyway, angry and careless now, and that was the moment they talked themselves into handcuffs. Cole did not kick down my door. He coordinated it the way professionals do. When Tristan and Sabrina came back outside empty-handed, he was already there with 2 uniformed officers. Tristan stopped cold. Sabrina tried to fold into Judith all over again, weak voice and confusion, but Cole looked right at her and called her Sabrina. He told her they had video and audio of her discussing a buyer. Her whole face changed. Young, sharp, furious. Tristan took one step backward like he might run, and one officer gently redirected him. Then he looked at me standing beside Cole and pleaded with my name like I could still fix this for him. I told him the truth in the plainest sentence I had. You broke into my safe and stole from Cora. That was the end of his story. By the time Cora got home from school, Tristan was gone, and the house felt like it belonged to me again. Not healed, not peaceful yet, just mine. I told her only what she needed to know. I said Tristan made choices that were not safe, and he would not be staying here. She sat very still on the couch, then nodded once, like some part of her had been preparing for that answer already. The next morning, I changed the locks myself with a kit from the hardware store. The screws bit clean into the door frame, and every turn of the screwdriver felt like a sentence I should have said sooner. I canceled the spare code on the garage keypad and collected every emergency key Tristan had stashed around the house. Cole helped me file for a protective order, not as a dramatic gesture, but as a practical one. A boundary with consequences. Then, the second front hit. My phone lit up with a fraud alert. Someone tried a large purchase on our old joint card at an electronics store. I did not call Tristan. I did not text. I tapped decline, called the bank, and shut the card down. An hour later, there was another attempt, this time through an online transfer service. It had the frantic rhythm of someone realizing every exit was starting to close. I opened a family group chat that included Tristan's sister, his aunt, anyone likely to check on Judith if they still believed she existed. Then I wrote one simple sentence. Tristan and Sabrina are not allowed at my home or Cora's school. Please do not share our location. No anger. No explanation. No emojis. Just a line. That was enough. I was done auditioning for belief. I was done teaching other adults how serious I was. Cora watched me move through those first days with a kind of careful silence, the way children do when they are checking whether the ground will stay still this time. So I kept things plain. Breakfast, school, dye, laundry, homework, hot chocolate. A normal life is not flashy, but after chaos, it feels almost holy. I did not need speeches. I needed locks that worked, passwords that changed, and one small girl beginning to understand that the dangerous part had been named out loud. About a week later, a jewelry dealer called the number listed on the stolen item report. His voice was careful, the voice of someone who did not want trouble landing on his desk. He said someone had made an inquiry about a bracelet matching the description, but they had not bought it and wanted verification first. I thanked him and sent everything straight to Cole. That was how the bracelet surfaced. Not through drama. Not through a confession. Through paper trails, hesitation, and one person who did not feel like inheriting a felony for someone else's greed. When Cole handed me the evidence bag at the station, I did not open it right away. I just asked him if it was really back. He nodded once and said yes. I drove home with the bag on the passenger seat like it was something alive. At the kitchen table, I opened it with Cora beside me. The bracelet caught the light exactly the way it had before. Heavy. Cold. Real. Cora did not touch it. She only stared at it for a long second, then looked up and whispered, "So it was not my fault." I put the bracelet back in the box and told her it had never been her fault. Not for 1 second. That week, I filed for divorce, and my attorney moved fast to put walls around every path Tristan might try next. The trust was protected. My signature meant something again. Sabrina called once from an unknown number. I blocked it without listening. Safety is usually built from small firm moves, not dramatic declarations. Then life began to narrow into useful routines. The bracelet went into a safe deposit box under Cora's name through the trust, exactly where it should have been from the beginning. Not in a closet, not in a family house, not anywhere a man with entitlement and a fake mother could think access meant ownership. Every time I finished one more practical step, the air in my chest loosened a little. There is a special kind of relief in shutting down a route someone thought they had a right to use. Money could not move. Credit could not bend. The thing they wanted most was no longer sitting inside my reach. It was back where it belonged, under protection that did not depend on me sleeping lightly. A few months later, our life looked ordinary from the outside, which was exactly the point. Cora and I moved into a smaller place with bright windows and neighbors who minded their own business. I kept our routines tight. School pickup passwords. Credit monitoring. Doors checked the same way every night. Things that would have sounded paranoid to me a year earlier now felt like housekeeping. Cora adjusted faster than I did in some ways. Children often do when the truth is finally simpler than the lie. She asked practical questions while brushing her teeth or packing her backpack. Can someone pretend to be family again? Can a person lie for that long? Can people lose access forever? I answered with facts, not fear. They can try, I told her, and we can stop them. Cole checked in now and then, with quick updates, never crossing lines, never turning himself into the center of the story. One afternoon, he stopped by with the final document, confirming the evidence return, and paused at the door before leaving. He said I had done it the right way. I told him I had done it the quiet way. He gave me a look that said he knew those were not always different things. From the living room, Cora called out, asking if we could make hot chocolate. I said yes, because that is what normal looks like now. Not the fake normal I used to live inside. Not a living room performance with props and scripts and a woman pretending to be confused. Real, normal. A smaller apartment, a locked door, a child doing homework at the table, a future handled through systems that do not depend on charm. Tristan had wanted access. Sabrina had wanted a sale. Judith had never existed the way we were told she did. But Cora still existed exactly as herself, which was the only part that mattered. Curious. Right. Still asking questions. Still here. And the home we built, after all of it, was not glamorous. But it had something better than appearances. It had truth. If someone had asked me before all of this, what I would lock down first after a betrayal, I might have said money, or paperwork, or the safe. But the truth is, the first thing I really locked down was access. Access to my daughter. Access to information. Access to the version of me that used to explain too much and hope reason would make a dishonest person kinder. Tristan and Sabrina counted on movement. They counted on confusion, on signatures slid across counters, on tired women saying, "I will deal with this tomorrow." Once I stopped giving them tomorrow, the whole structure started falling apart. That was the lesson underneath everything. The theft mattered. The bracelet mattered. The trust mattered. But the part that still lives under my skin is simpler. They used my child as soft ground. They counted on her love of family, her politeness, her instinct to listen to adults, and they tried to build leverage on top of that. I can forgive a lot of things faster than I can forgive that. Cora still asks careful questions sometimes, but they no longer come from fear. They come from curiosity, which is where they should have lived all along. She is not scanning my face to see whether she's allowed to notice what she notices. She is just a child again. That is not a small recovery. It is everything. And when I think back to Black Friday, to her fingers digging into my hand behind that fake marble pillar, I understand now that she was the first one who truly saw it. Not all of it. Not the paperwork, not the theft, not the trust structure. But she saw the lie walking in heels, and she trusted herself enough to pull me out of sight. I did the legal work after that. I made the calls. I signed the filings. I changed the locks. But she was the first crack in their performance. That matters to me. It means they did not silence her. It means the thing they wanted most, control without interruption, never fully belonged to them. People like to talk about peace as if it always arrives through forgiveness, through closure, through some graceful emotional ending where everybody learns a lesson and becomes softer. That was not my version. My peace came through systems, passwords, paper trails, safe deposit boxes, updated pickup lists. The quiet confidence of knowing who was allowed near my daughter and who was not. It came through legal language that left no room for improvisation. It came through saying no without turning the no into a debate. There is something deeply underrated about practical safety. It is not flashy, but it lets your nervous system stop scanning every room for exits. Tristan tried money after I shut down the house. Then he tried access. Then he tried to re-enter the story through confusion, fraud, and whatever scraps of emotional leverage he still thought he had. None of it worked, because by then I was no longer negotiating with the fantasy that he was misunderstood. I had already seen him in the mall. I had already watched Sabrina drop the act. I had already heard Bayer on the camera feed in my own house. After that, forgiveness was not the urgent task. Clarity was. And clarity can be its own mercy. Not mercy for them. Mercy for me. Mercy for Cora. Mercy for the part of our lives that deserved to stop being managed around someone else's deception. If I seem calm when I talk about it now, that calm was expensive. It was built slowly, one decision at a time, by refusing to hand my child's future back to people who had already shown me what they thought it was worth. I do not need every question answered anymore. I do not need to know exactly when Tristan started planning it, or how long Sabrina had been rehearsing Judith. I know enough. They wanted access to what was not theirs, and they were willing to build a fake family around that want. I shut the door. That is the whole moral center of it. Now, when Cora asks whether someone can pretend to be family again, I tell her the truth. Yes, people can pretend. They can act loving when what they really want is entry. They can use soft voices and careful stories, and still mean harm. But I also tell her the second truth. The one I care about more. We can stop them. That is the part I wish more women were taught earlier. Not just how to endure, how to stop, how to document, how to step out of a story someone else wrote for them and refuse the role. Tristan and Sabrina wanted us trapped inside their version, where I was tired enough to sign, trusting enough to wait, and guilty enough to keep smoothing over what my daughter noticed first. We do not live in that version anymore. We live in a smaller apartment with bright windows and ordinary mornings, and a child who still loves stories, still edits little videos, still asks direct questions. The bracelet is back where it belongs. The trust is sealed off from hands that tried to pry it open. The doors lock. The passwords hold. The routines work. None of that sounds dramatic when you say it out loud, but that is exactly why it matters. Drama was their tool. Boring safety is mine. And if there is an ending worth keeping from all of this, it is not that I outsmarted them. It is that my daughter learned something truer than fear. She learned that adults can lie, and systems can still protect you. She learned that seeing clearly is not the same as causing trouble. She learned that asking questions does not make bad things happen. Sometimes it is the thing that gets you out. So that is where I leave it. Not at the mall. Not at the safe. Not even at the arrest. I leave it here, in a life that is quieter because it is honest, where my daughter no longer has to stand in the shadow of somebody else's performance and wonder what is real.